Hey, hello, hello.
Give me a growl. Just. I'm starting the interview with that. If it isn't my favorite band from Hyderabad, India, it got Kaushal and Abbas from Godless, and they're tuning in to talk about a new album, I think. I don't know. I heard something about a new album. I might have written an article a little while ago. Actually, I love the album. Who am I kidding? How you guys doing? Kaushal, you just finished work or something?
Yeah, I was kind of like on a work call. It was sort of a team building thing. But yeah, I literally just got done with that at 3 p.m. and 3 p.m. Indian time, and I just joined the call.
So the team building exercise is you're going to use your diaphragm and push really hard and go.
I wish, man. I wish.
It's a good team building exercise. Everyone growls as loud as they could.
Yeah, that in fact would be a really good idea for a team building exercise. In fact, yeah.
And since you're working from home, everyone will lose their voice the next day, so there's no work the next day.
Not if you do it properly. If you do it properly, it's fine. But can you imagine what tea breaks would be like? You're like, okay, I'm just going to go on tea break for a minute. Okay, cool. Bye. Hello, this is Kaushal. How can I help you today? Thank you guys for joining me on the interview series. And yeah, we're going to have a chat about the album that you guys have got out, States of Chaos, which is a motherfucker of an album. A barn burner, to be sure. The last release was 2018 with Swarm, is that right?
Yep.
So between Swarm and there's been almost 4 years, 3 years, almost 4 years?
Yeah, almost exactly 3 years.
You guys have done so much work in that time, like building the band, building your fan base, doing Vaken, that set. Chef Kiss. Mwah! It was fucking amazing. Seeing how you guys have evolved with States of Chaos was just mind-blowing. When you sent it over, I was just like, holy shit. Like, I can't believe these guys are from India, first of all, and I can't believe that this is this good. Like, Swarm was great, but States of Chaos, holy shit. So yeah, what can you guys tell us about the album? We'll start with Abbas.
Well, yeah, so thanks, man. Thanks. Glad you liked the album for a start. And thanks for having us here. And yeah, so the album's just been music we've been writing over the last 3 years. I mean, I wouldn't say 3, maybe 2 years, because we spent the last year polishing up the album, recording, and eventually releasing it. But yeah, it's about 2.5 years of us just putting music together, putting our influences together, putting what we've learned and evolving as musicians from Swarm to right now, States of Chaos. So that's us. That's the last 2.5 years of our life.
And that would have tied in a lot with your audio engineering stuff that we were talking about before the interview. Has that played a part?
Definitely, yeah. So because I noticed things. I mean, like, with an album, we wanted to add more elements to it and make it like one solid unit of music. Like 29 minutes or whatever, however long it is. We wanted to sound like a cohesive piece of music. Just like one solid slab of music, not just like songs that. We also design it in a way that you're supposed to listen to it in order. It kind of just flows really well that way. So yeah, there's things between songs. With this whole sound aspect, we wanted a certain sound. We wanted to try and pull that off. Something that's just has a Godless sound basically. So have that and have little bits and pieces between songs, certain effects in certain places, things like that. So yeah, it's minimal, but most of it is just like we keep it very raw basically. This time we wanted to also retain that very raw feel, and then I think that gives it a little bit of a different touch compared to the earlier records and most of the other records which you listen to is just done. We do want to play tight, of course, but we also want to have the natural flow to the music and what makes it sound human, basically. So that's what we did with this record.
Yeah, it's not so much of a production; it's more of it sounds more like a performance to my ear. Especially this side of 2010, there is a growing distinction between a production and a performance. A production is going to sound like perfect, polished, whatever. A performance is going to sound like dudes playing their instruments and rocking the fuck out, which is what you guys have definitely achieved with all of your output, but especially with States of Chaos. Holy crap.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Actually, you're not the first person to tell us this. People pick up on that as well, because that's kind of what we were going for. So nice. We wanted to have that performance feel like, I mean, even the playing, like there's certain parts where it's, you know, like it's just like, from a bass playing point of view, it might not be the tightest, but I'm just like playing what I would feel like playing, you know, drop in a slide here, bass slide here, do something like things I would do live, basically. Just whatever feels natural with the music, you know, just to kind of took it that way, that approach to music.
So, Kaushal, what is States of Chaos to you?
I kind of see it as a very natural progression of the band's sound, and pretty much a culmination of, you know, us as a band over the past 5 years or so. So yeah, for me, it's, you know, it feels like a very natural progression. You know, I feel like we've also put in a little more of ourselves in it compared to the older material. You know, I think that really comes through when you hear the record. Yeah, I would say it's a little more angrier, fast. I mean, more aggressive.
Absolutely, especially your vocals. Again, in the review, that was one of the things I highlighted. Like a lot of the times I can't be certain if your vocals were double tracked. Could you confirm that?
No, it's not double tracked.
I was thinking, like, if they are double tracked, these are tight. But one of the things I did notice about the album is if it was double tracked, your performance in particular on it was pissed off, super pissed off. And that was one of the things that came across really strongly on the album. You didn't need layers. When you did use the layers, they were very sparing, they were very precise. Otherwise, you had so much energy in your performance that you were more than enough in that role by yourself. Apart from some of the production here and there, which, you know, it's ear candy. It sounds nice. Following on from Swarm, was there what drove the writing process this time around?
So this time around, I mean, the process was very similar to Swarm, I guess. I mean, you know, kind of write the riffs at home, take it to the rehearsal space, and then jam it out and just see what we want to polish, what we want to tweak. And the vocals always come towards the end. We kind of give him a proper structure because he likes to play off the rhythm of the drums as well. So, like, you know, we structured that. So yeah, it was mostly writing the riffs, the guitar parts, and then jamming with the drums. But this time around, compared to other times, we actually went to the studio once before the release, in fact, before the actual recording. So we went in, the way it's traditionally done, you know, we went in with, recorded some scratch tracks, recorded the drums, recorded everything, then heard it over multiple times and just figured out what we want to change it, polish up. And then again, went back to the studio for the final record. So this time around, yeah, we wanted to, like, you know, it's our first album, LP as well, right? So we wanted to take that time to, you know, just polish up everything, spend some time with the music as well. Also, another thing that would be different, I guess, this time would be that with like the first EP, essentially the Decadence, and even the next one, Swarm, I think we pretty much played every single song of the record live before we actually recorded it in the studio. This time around, we, I think, played just one song of the record live and just maybe like 3 or 4 times. And everything else was written and never even played live. You know, it was just, I don't think the band fully together even rehearsed the music. It was just like, getting your parts right, getting this thing. Like, I mean, yeah, the drums, guitars, bass did a little bit at some point. There was more like, you know, just like rehearsing like guitars and drums, just rehearsing it over and over, just polishing our parts, making sure we know we get exactly what we want. And yeah, so like I said, it wasn't live tested, but we spent a lot more time with this music than we did with anything. Like
live testing songs is usually a really good idea when you're going to record albums and stuff like that. But you guys have been around for a little bit. You're not amateurs. You know what works. You know what doesn't work. You still play the club shows, but like I said earlier, you played Wacken. You know what works in that big setting, and you know how to make it work. I guess a big mistake that a lot of younger bands do is they feel the need to release an album straight away, and you know, for some reason that's the big be all end all. When you can take the approach that Godless has taken, which is you got your EPs, you play your EPs, you do your live testing, you work out what works, what doesn't work, and how it relates inside the band, and then use all of that information to create something like States of Chaos, where it's a performance that just sounds incredible and it truly does build on top of everything else that you've already done before, and in such an epic way, especially with the kind of influences that you have. Like what would you say, or who would you say rather, has influenced Godless with this round of recording? Is it the same influences that you've had before?
Yeah, I think that we actually try and leave out any conscious influence from the music. Because, you know, if something new comes in, like it kind of just, and if you're listening to too much of it at one point, it kind of creeps into the music. So this music just comes naturally to us now. It's been these many years of playing this music. So it comes naturally. It's probably just stuff that we grew up listening to, you know, because the music is just flows out of us the way it does. So we try not to let too many of the other elements creep in, you know. and actually try and consciously not listen to too much music while you're writing music, because that will tend to slip in otherwise.
Yeah, you get the Duke Nukem Forever effect where like you have an idea of what you want to release and then somebody else release something and you're like, oh, I want to put that in my album. Then somebody else release something and, oh, I want to put that in my album, and so on and so on and so forth. I guess I didn't mean so much, with other bands as well, like what's influenced you. I mean, say in your case with your Strandberg, like you haven't always been playing the Strandberg. How has that influenced the group?
That's cool. I didn't even know you did enough research to know what basses I was using, but that's pretty cool.
You read my interview. You read my interview, right?
I mean the review, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I heard that bass tone, before I even wrote a word of the review, my first thing was, I've got to figure out how he is making this bass tone, because this is crazy good. And I need to know how to do this. I saw the Strandberg. I'm pretty sure. Are you using Nordstrand pickups or
Nordstrand pickups? Yeah. So I always used to use Spectre basses, and I love the growl of the Spectre bass, and I like the weight. I enjoy playing heavy basses actually. I just like digging into the note and like really driving the bass. But I think at the end of the Swarm tour, I think my back started taking a toll on my back, my lower back, and suddenly in I think January I had a slip disc, and it was quite bad. I couldn't move. I couldn't even like get off bed. Like it was that bad. So I was down for almost like 3 weeks. After about 3 weeks, I could walk. At that point, I realized I had to move to a lighter bass, because we jump around quite a bit on stage, and and the extra weight of the bass just takes a toll on the back. So that's when I decided, I had to find the lightest bass possible. And I always liked the Strandberg basses, but I was like, now I had a valid reason to buy one. So I went ahead and got that. And it's actually an extremely comfortable bass to play. There was no, I got the bass, I just opened it up and I went straight to rehearsal. I got it 10 minutes before our rehearsal actually. So walked in, the neck, it has a very different kind of neck. It had that patented technology with the cut. It's not a rounded neck. So but playing that and the fan frets, it was just very comfortable. So yeah, it just helped me play faster, different, be more fluent with my left hand. The right hand obviously doesn't get affected with the playing, but my left hand was able to do a lot more and a lot easier actually. It was a lot easier to play more challenging parts.
And that was one thing that really stood out throughout the whole album. Like normally when you're playing bass parts that low, like it's not exactly the most dense mix that I've ever heard, but like it's dense enough. In a mix like that, it's very hard to hear those it's very hard to hear his subtleties in playing, and even legato runs, sweep runs. A lot of the tricks that you're doing, if they're not mixed right, you can't hear them. But that was again one of the things that stood out so strongly was you could hear everything that you were doing, and a lot of the stuff that you were doing that you would do live, that I have seen you do live, translated into the recording so well, and that it added so much propulsion to the sound, which is not something that you hear. You don't really hear it in thrash. You don't really hear it especially in death metal. You don't really hear it unless, we're talking about, the fretless players or Obscura or something like that. But the way that you've been able to pull it off is just frankly gorgeous. It's a masterclass on playing bass. And
thanks so much, man. I did try out a couple of things I had never before actually. Just like hybrid plucking and picking kind of thing. I don't think I would have been able to try it out with a different bass. This just became a little easier with this. In certain parts of the songs it just asked for that. I don't want to have too much bass wankery going on. It's just how to just play for the music. But like these certain elements, just felt like dropping those things in at certain places where suddenly just like pick and then pop with while I've still got to pick, I'm like popping with the other finger, which I've never even tried before. I've only tried it in the studio earlier recording it. And in that way, they also left a little window open for myself with the bass towards the end to experiment and, just play what felt right in the moment in the studio. That's another thing that we had never done before. You just left a little room for improvisation.
Yeah, that was something that was prevalent throughout the entire album. You can actually hear it. That's one of the things that makes it sound more like a performance. You can actively hear throughout the songs where you have allowed each other space to be able to perform and to showcase yourselves in the context of an entire band. And that, for this type of music, it is extremely rare. Was that instinctual, or was that just something that came about from playing the live shows and getting that feel about each other?
I think playing live, definitely we have that, we can bounce off each other's styles. And I think it's just become natural, after a while, playing music together for so long and for so many years. And we try and rehearse a lot as well. So we try and rehearse 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. So just jamming with the musicians, you get the feel of this. So yeah, we did consciously leave a very small window open for the studio, but yeah, we went in more or less with the idea of almost like the complete idea of what we want, but yeah, left it open for improvisation.
I've seen a lot of the press that's been going around. It's all been super positive, not just from me, from Metal Injection, from pretty much everywhere else. How well, from your perspective, do you feel the album is being received? Is it what you were hoping for?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of it, like after releasing music for these many years, a couple of records which have been perceived really well. You kind of do it for yourself, but you also have that bar that is set somewhere. You're not sure what it is, and we're confident with the music. We're happy with the music, which is why we're releasing it. But we weren't sure how people are going to react to it, but I think it's been great and we're really happy with it. Perfect. Like, everyone's got really nice things to say, and you've heard the music and you've been really kind to say a lot of good things about it. So,
well, here's another good thing. Again, in I think one of the last things I said in my review is the only critique I can give to this album is good luck to Godless in trying to top it.
Yeah, I remember that.
How are you going to do that?
That's as big an honor as you can hear, man. Like, it sounds, that's great to hear. I mean, it's great that you dig the music enough to say something like that to us, which is awesome.
You bet. Well, yeah, I've been seeing, well, it's not just me that feels the same way. Like, as I said, all the publications will either say that or think that. But in the stories that I've been seeing on your Instagram, in your Instagram feed and in the posts and stuff like that, I've seen the shows. It has been, your tour dates have been going off. How have you been enjoying that tour so far?
Yeah, it's been going pretty well, man. All of the shows have been pretty fucking wild. We've had good turnouts in pretty much every single city that we played in, good merch sales. Yeah, so it's so far so good. We have another date coming up in a week. Actually, this weekend. So yeah, that would mark the final show in our 2021 dates. We're also looking to play more shows in 2022. So we have one show lined up in Jan, and we're planning to get the album out and play it live in other cities that we haven't played in 2021. So I would say the tour has been pretty kick-ass. Great merch sales. We've had to reprint several batches of merchandise. So yeah, I would say it's going pretty fucking great. Yeah,
very fucking great. That's Get that on a shirt. I actually had a question for you, Kaushal. So on Swarm, your vocals were incredible. I mean, I don't know how long you've been back in the meeting. To be honest, you scared the crap out of me when you just popped up back on my monitor. I'm like, whoa, where'd you come from?
Yeah, sorry, man. I've had a couple of power cuts that I live in India, so.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good.
You're getting the full Indian experience, honestly.
Well, Kaushal, your vocals on Swarm, they were kick-ass. But as we were kind of touching on before, on States of Chaos, with that album, you guys had already hit world-class status. What have you done in the past 4 years to improve on your vocal technique?
I don't think it was a very conscious effort or anything. It's just that I consume a shitload of music, man. And I guess it's just a culmination of all the stuff that I've been listening to. I didn't really actively pursue a special vocal technique or anything, but the more music you consume, the more shit you hear. I guess in your mind, you just sort of develop this, I don't know, a certain feeling in your headspace. So I guess that kind of came through. But yeah, I mean, there was no sort of purposeful learning or unlearning of a specific technique or anything.
I'm surprised to hear that because, again, Swarm was great. States of Chaos. Look, in Swarm, your vocals were clear, they were articulate. But on this time around, you've just developed beyond. Like, to hear that you've done that without a conscious effort, that's just batshit insane.
As I said before, I guess we put a little more of ourselves into it. And, it was just stuff that came naturally. And, I just kind of did what I thought would suit the song, would suit, the entire atmosphere of the album. So, I kind of look at it more that way. I definitely know that there is a little bit of variance, compared to the older EP Swarm. But yeah, I would like to say that, we didn't really do as many takes as we did on Swarm. We just kind of went for it, and we kind of kept it a little more raw, natural, and organic. So I guess that's what you're hearing.
And yeah, I covered that with the bus before, and my mind was blown. I guess the final question that I have for both of you is, India is a very traditional country. As when I first heard Swarm, I was just like, you've got to be shitting me. A band from India is doing thrash death. Not just doing it, but they're kings of it. Fucking kings of it. Do you guys get much of a reaction when you tell people like what you do musically? Do you get any like side eyes or anything like that? Like how does...
So there are quite a few metal bands in India. I guess the scene kind of like started back in the late 80s. But I mean, obviously there were extremely few bands. I mean, there was like one band in one metro in South and maybe one band up north somewhere. But in the 90s, there were like a handful of more bands. And like by the time the 2000s kicked in, that's when, bands really started cropping up all over the country. And I guess like the real push to the Indian scene would be, bands like Iron Maiden and Slayer coming and performing in India. So I guess like the more bands started coming to India, the more bands started, started getting active and, they started playing live and everything. But yeah, I mean, so India is it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I'll try to do a good job. So there are several Indias within India, and so it's completely different when you sort of live in a metropolitan city, like a Delhi or a Bombay or a Bangalore or a Hyderabad. So it's the lives of people are kind of pretty different. So then you have like another sort of India which is like super traditional, super conservative, and all of that. So, and since we have this two Indias kind of situation, we kind of like get away with most of the shit. So, if it was a little more conservative country, I don't think it would be cool to have your band's name is Godless. So, so we haven't gotten into any trouble because of it, but we've definitely had some comical moments where. On Twitter, there was some random Indian account. They were like, "Oh, look at these guys are a Christian missionary band. They changed the name to Godless because they don't want to know what they are, what they really are, or something like that." I mean, we found it fucking hilarious, man. Like, so we do get shit like that, but it's obviously people who have not heard rock and roll, metal, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, in India. A lot of people are into hip hop and electronic music and all of that. So there is that stuff too. But obviously, the most of the music consumption is from the film industry. I guess you would know Bollywood. So we're not into that at all. We don't listen to Bollywood. We don't watch those fucking movies. We fucking love metal, and as you know, metalheads are pretty much the same all over the world. All of us started. I mean, we listened to the same bands while we were growing up. We all love the same band. The bands that we look up to are pretty much the same. So yeah, it's two Indias, man. So I'll let Abbas add more to that.
So it's like, you might think that there's a lot of people. Like, if you play a festival here, say there's about 2,000 people that turn up. It might look like, oh, India's massive. They have like a huge scene, and it is good. But compared to the population of the country, it's nothing. It's like a really tiny thing. So it's still a very underground thing. So metal is not big enough for someone to notice us and have a problem with us. There are enough people. There's a lot of people. We go to different cities. You play shows. There's good turnouts. Say if you tell someone from you play a club show and you have 250 people turn up. That's a huge number in most other countries, But for India, that's like, that's just. You can do better kind of thing, because the population is just so huge that those numbers just don't tell this thing. And 200, in the largest scheme of things, like the population of one city might be as much as one country, So I kind of grew up in New Zealand. I went to school there for a while.
Oh, right. Kia ora.
Yeah, and Kia ora. Like the city I live in has a larger population than the entire country. So it's that big. If you just to put it into perspective, and I'm not even in the biggest city, not even close to being the biggest city in the country. So it's that huge.
Right. And let me add something to that. I'm just going to give you a picture of what, I'm going to give you a visual image of something that I think is quite funny. So in Bangalore, we used to have this venue, or not a venue. These were like grounds that you could sort of like rent. It was called Palace Grounds because I guess it was owned by like some, king dynasty or whatever. But yeah, basically all the metal festivals used to happen in a place called Palace Grounds. And the funny thing about Palace Grounds is you also have like a wedding section. So on one side, yeah. So on one side, you've got a sea of people dressed in like, super traditional clothes. They're going to the weddings, they're going to their, feasts or whatever. And on one side, you'll see a sea of metalheads dressed in black walking towards the concert or, coming out. So it's, I've experienced this firsthand several times. So that's like the best picture of the two Indias that I can give you. So, yeah.
I want to. Oh man, that sounds amazing. Can you imagine, like, if the traditional Indians got into it, and like you just have like a whole bunch of people in like the big floral dresses and stuff like that, just crowd surfing with the metalheads? That would be fun. That would be so rad.
I wish that would have happened, but obviously they can't enter the. So because it's cordoned off, so like the wedding section is kind of like separate. But when you're entering palace grounds, that's when the two sets of people see each other. But yeah, then they go their separate ways.
There's a fix for that. What you do during the set, I want a wall of death, and they just get like a massive wall of death to go to the wedding section. Like
yeah.
that would make for a memorable. That would be a memorable wedding.
It'd be cool if we could convert the people from the wedding to metalheads and eventually have them all come down to the next gig.
Yeah, exactly. Here comes the guitars. Here come the growls. Oh! This is definitely one of those chats that I could go on for forever, but I think I might cut us off there. Abbas, Kaushal, thank you so much for joining me on the program. It is, again, just been a pleasure, and it's really good to interview a band that I got to start with in my own journalism career with Swarm, coming full circle to now having an actual chat in my own setup with my own shit, and doing so shoulder to shoulder across the seas. So the new album is sick. I love it, and I have a great deal of respect and gratitude for being aware of Godless, and that's something that I'd like to push along.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.
You bet. And I guess to get Abbas to just scream fuck or something.
Okay. So you can go ahead and you say, hey, this is Abbas, and then I go, hey, this is Kaushal, and then both of us together we can say, and you're watching Sono Muerto.
Sono fucking muerto, Sono muerto.